Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. It has long been established that when people are repeatedly falsely accused of behaving badly, it damages how they are perceived publicly, even after the smears have been disproved. Unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton was and continues to be the textbook example of how this concept of giving a dog a bad name to hang him works. He has been falsely accused of being a tax dodger, hypocrite, unpatriotic and unsporting, to name but a few. He has also, without any sense of irony, been denounced as woke, vegan, entitled, political and polarizing. After all, he is only a polarizing figure because of the split between those hating on him as a result of persistent smears by the media that is monetizing whipping up hatred against him, and those who choose to look beyond or reject the false smears to support him overwhelmingly. It is a matter of public record that most of F1 media took part in the gaslighting of the theft of his 8th title, and the few that opted to stand on the truth, like Johnny Herbert and Damon Hill, have since been sacked. We have also done several videos showing how all of them, including but not limited to Sky, BBC, and Channel 4, routinely attempt to undermine him with unhinged opinions that are later debunked. However, the damaging remarks leave permanent digital footprints that cannot be erased when later proven to be false or wrong. We saw how in the build-up to Abu Dhabi 2021, Max and Red Bull repeatedly smeared him and Mercedes with false allegations about cheating and bad sportsmanship that were then used to whip up attacks at Red Bull-friendly circuits and on social media. We saw how the FIA and media did nothing to discourage Max and Red Bull from inciting their supporters to boo him at certain circuits, but when the general public started booing Max at every other track, then him, Red Bull and the FIA had plenty to say to try and discourage such. We also saw how the failure of Mercedes to robustly defend theirs and Hamilton's reputation encouraged Red Bull and F1 media excess. On the flip side, we also saw how the Mercedes inertia coupled with the incessant whinging by Max and Red Bull provided the cover for FIA inaction on Red Bull transgressions. The FIA appeared to be adopting a conspicuous policy of only responding to loud complaints, so he who complained loudest won the day. We all saw what happened after Red Bull complained loudest in Abu Dhabi. And we all saw how F1 media rallied around them to gaslight the theft and their reputation as the nasty team. It has been well demonstrated that the Mercedes strategy of not complaining or taking the higher moral ground, if you will, does not work. We have also argued that this was a sinister ruse by Mercedes to undermine Hamilton anyway. So, it is clear that Ferrari need to start pushing back robustly against the anti-Lewis brigade that have long had the freedom to smear him at will, and have demonstrated the willingness to continue unchallenged. The F1 media also routinely engage in covert and insidious attempts to smear the GOAT. We have highlighted many such efforts, including the most recent one with Martin Brundle of Sky, provoking a fake debate about Hamilton, the nicest champion ever in the history of the sport, being angsty with his engineer during his Ferrari debut in the chaotic Australian GP. It did not matter that Brundle's claim was maliciously fraudulent, as a complicit and unrestrained F1 media ran with it. Sir Lewis was forced to respond to it several days later on the eve of the Chinese Grand Prix, which provoked headlines like "Hamilton hits back at yapping critics." We are not aware that Ferrari responded to it, and if they did, then it was not robust enough to provide headlines to match their drivers. The evidence is clear that the reprehensible conduct displayed by Brundle is prevalent within F1 media, primarily because Mercedes never pushed back against it. In stark comparison, one just needs to look at how quickly the FIA backed down when Toto vigorously defended his wife, whose high-level appointment within Formula One rightly raised concerns about possible conflict of interest. For the record, we assert that Suze's role is one of many such examples in an F1 that is a cesspool of conflicts of interest, but nevertheless, by responding vigorously, Toto was able to get the FIA to stand down a credible investigation. Just imagine what the Hamilton F1 landscape would look like if Toto had applied that same energy in his defense. Ferrari need to face down the anti-Lewis brigade and ensure that their efforts are just as high profile as their drivers, otherwise the attacks will continue unabated until something akin to Abu Dhabi occurs again. Many of our regulars like at Talk Formula One can cite numerous instances of covert Hamilton attacks in the mold of Brundle's angsty comment from last week. Comments like "thank goodness for Max Verstappen," as Brundle sought to gaslight his illegal defensive antics and potty mouth to prop him up as a legitimate title contender. Or crediting Max's driving skills in a dominant Red Bull while discrediting the GOATs in a competitive Mercedes. Discrediting or undermining Hamilton during and after the race is now so common in F1 that we can provide striking examples of such in the second race of the season. The examples come from the BBC, the world's biggest news source, who recently acquired radio broadcasts rights to Formula One to add to their live text commentary. It would appear that a track record of willingness to diss Sir Lewis is a prerequisite for acquiring F1 broadcast rights. We have already produced numerous videos on the BBC leading attacks on Sir Lewis beyond gaslighting Abu Dhabi, to include degrading his digital footprints with their chief F1 correspondent Andrew Benson in the forefront. Their text coverage of the Chinese Grand Prix is littered with them making patently untrue claims about him during the race, which will forever be recorded in the digital space. For example, when the two Ferrari drivers collided in the first lap with Charles coming out with visible damage, Benson expectedly blamed Hamilton for the collision in language which if true should have resulted in a sanction against him. The BBC text commentary opened at 7:03 with, "Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are also tussling with each other and looks like the Ferrari driver has front wing damage." 5 minutes later, they wrote that the Monegasque driver was just tagged by his teammate when Hamilton moved across the track. As Benson provided the supporting comment that the Ferraris came together and that damage of the front wing on Charles Leclerc's car was caused by Lewis Hamilton. The false narrative that Hamilton caused the collision by moving across is now recorded on the world's biggest digital news source forever. In stark comparison, the Dutch pro-Verstappen GP fans described the incident as a collision without apportioning blame to either driver. The race steward had no reason to flag the incident or sanction either driver. Charles himself speaking after the race said it was no one's fault, just an unfortunate racing incident. Tellingly, when the BBC thought the collision was between Max and Charles, they described it as a tussle, but when it was Hamilton, he was the one who caused it by moving across. Some 35 minutes or so later, Benson highlighted what he claimed was a bit of a clash of culture as Hamilton said he would decide when to swap places with Charles under team orders. How would Benson know what had been agreed within the team beforehand to give the impression that Hamilton was pushing back? This is just confirmation bias over and over again, as these commentators feel that they have the freedom to say whatever they like to undermine the GOAT, without any pushback. Does anyone recall how Max Verstappen started boycotting Sky after Ted Kravitz said Lewis Hamilton had been robbed of the 2021 title? Or how they complained about Damon Hill's unyielding criticism of Max's illegal driving tactics and tendency to cry like a baby when roles are reversed? We won't even go into Johnny Herbert because we are running out of time. But the long and short of it is that Red Bull have made plenty out of complaining about legitimate criticisms, and it behoves Ferrari to start pushing back very strongly against malicious smears and unhinged criticisms masquerading as commentary. We would also encourage those of you who have any access to anyone associated with Ferrari to share this video with them, and if you have a platform then spread the message through that, so that they can be moved to start generating headlines reflecting ours. Forza Ferrari.